And welcome to the podcast, Appetite for Distortion, episode 247. My name is Brando. If you're watching on Zoom, it's another Zoom featured episode. You can find those all on our YouTube channel. You can see a familiar face, whether you're a Guns N' Roses fan or you're a fan of the podcast. Doug Goldstein, how are you, sir?
Good, Brando. How are you, buddy?
I like your shirt.
Thank you. A buddy of mine got it for me. I'm wearing it already.
If you're just listening on the podcast, Doug is wearing the official Appetite for Distortion t-shirt
Yes,
that I'm also wearing.
Wearing it proudly. Yeah.
Awesome.
I'm wearing my Miami colors.
Okay.
Miami State flag. Hurley puts on.
Okay. That's a hat. And I have my GNR hat that I got off Amazon because I'm a poser, I guess. But you can get these these Appetite for Distortion swag on redbubble.com. And joining us also, which I love to do, in addition to inviting former managers of Guns N' Roses on the program, is to invite listeners. You who listens to this podcast, however you listen to it, you are a part of the show. I've said that since the beginning when I was doing this with Scotto. So a name I've seen for a while on Facebook. I've never seen the face. Now I do. Again, we're on Zoom. Tommy or Thomas. What do you prefer, Tommy or Thomas Frazier?
Tommy.
Right on. And what's great is because when I've had listeners on, it's usually somebody who's another, not just a part of the country, but a part of the world. I've had people on from, Portugal or, Canada or all these other different countries. You're kind of a stone's throw over a bridge. You're in Staten Island?
Staten Island, New York. Some people would consider that a foreign country.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
Dude.
Foot of the Verrazano.
That's right. Hey, Tommy, I hope you don't mind if I do a little bit of intro. So the reason why I asked Tommy to join Brando and I is Tommy and I, although we've never met, we've been talking via Facebook forever.
Mm-hmm.
During the days when I was living in Hawaii, which anybody that knows me or has followed kind of what I've gone through a long time ago. So Tommy and I have been talking for a long time.
Yeah.
So finally, the other day, I just picked up the phone. I said, "Hey, answer your damn phone," on Facebook. And we had such a hoot talking that I said, "Hey, why don't you join us on Sunday?" So great. Glad to have you, Tommy. You're a great guy.
Thank you. And thank you for the invite. And Brando, thank you for all your hard work with entertaining us GNR fans.
I do the best I can. And that's why Doug has been such a pleasure to meet, because talking to Doug, he mentioned talking to you. He's throughout the course of our bromance, he's mentioned a few GNR fans that he's become friends with. And it's really cool to see, because as we've, kind of discussed over the course of this podcast, the current incarnation isn't the most accessible. Let's put it that way.
Right.
So Doug is very accessible, and he mentioned you, and the name stuck out. Again, I pay attention to who follows this show, and I said, I'm like, you know what? Bring him on. See if he's available someday.
Thank you. And we're very grateful for Doug's entertainment and just being genuine and a down-to-earth great guy.
Thanks, brother.
And thank you, for skipping church.
I went. I was a good boy. I went last night.
Okay.
I went at 4 p.m. I was a good boy. I went at 4 p.m. And Doug, I sent you an instant messenger, the enrollment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Doug, you and I will go to a synagogue tomorrow. All right.
Brando, I'll come out and go with you. We could swap off. 1 week I'll go with you. 1 week you come with me.
That's right.
Before we get into the GNR talk, I don't think I've been to a synagogue since my last brother was bar mitzvah. So I don't know.
Unfortunately, I went to one in LA, a funeral. It was terrible.
Oh, all right. Well, on that note, well, Tommy's going to
No,
join
I mean terrible because it was a young lady who died, and just sad.
Yeah, of course. No, I know that is terrible. And then I wanted to awkwardly say, on that sad note, let's transition to Guns N' Roses. So I'm sorry you had that experience in your life.
Next synagogue I go to, maybe it'll be more pleasant.
Yes, we got to get you to our bar mitzvah. All right.
Absolutely.
And well, it's kind of maybe a foreshadowing about some serious stuff that we may talk about. All right, let's go that, because Doug called me. I mean, he randomly calls me, whether it's just to say hey or talk about Limp Bizkit or something like that. But he asked if I had seen the Reelz documentary on TV, which premiered I think last weekend as we're recording this. So we're recording this February 7th. So I don't know. It wasn't this past weekend. Maybe the weekend. I don't know. It's quarantine. I don't know. I know what year it is. That's about it.
Yeah.
The only reason I was able to watch it because I don't have that channel, and I'll give a shout out to another great listener of the show, Ali Garza.
Ali, we love it.
She did a Facebook Live. I don't think many people knew about it because there was like a few people watching, and I'm like, I'm not Xing out of this link. I don't know if I can get it back again. And when I did share, because somebody did upload the whole show, and I shared that, it was taken down shortly after. So I know there are a lot of people who didn't get to see it. That being said, if you've seen GNR documentaries in the past, there wasn't too much perhaps you had missed. But I wanted to talk about things that were discussed that weren't cleared up. And I guess I want to talk about it because Doug wanted to talk about it because Doug was upset. Sure. Doug, you know, it was nice to see. It was cool to see Doug on the documentary. Now knowing the guy, it was cool seeing Vicky Hamilton. She was awesome.
Love Vicky, by the way. Talk about a gal that got a raw deal. Oh my Lord. I mean, she should have managed Guns N' Roses and got screwed. And I will forever love Vicky because of that. She should have at least been given a chance. I mean, she really bore her heart and soul, let him live there. So yeah, I too love Vicky, but go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, this is our show, so interject whenever you need to. And I'll give her book a plug, Appetite for Dysfunction.
Yeah.
Not distortion or destruction, dysfunction. So she was great. There was a couple people I didn't recognize, which we'll get into. You know, like the dude with the sideways hat and all the tattoos. They had just like random therapists on to analyze Axl, which I never like because they're not your client.
Yeah.
But maybe let's start with Mick Wall.
Oh my God, we got to start with people that we hate.
And let me just preface this, and I'll let you go, Doug.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've never read a Mick Wall book. I haven't, you know, and that really is no slight to him. I've just read like the autobiographies. I think that the band that time forgot, and that book. I've reached out to Mick a few times for an interview, never heard back. That happens, whatever. So I watched the documentary, and I'm watching it, and I'm thinking, wow, this guy's really milking the GNR teat because he has had nothing to do with the band in a very long time, and I don't know what he knows. It sounds like he's speaking from a place of knowledge. He may have known some things. Does he really know the current events? I don't know. And then they start talking about the videos and the so-called decline of the band and breaking up, and he uses the word when he's talking about November Rain, not estranged, which people have fun, you know, with the Dolphins and everything. The November Rain video was cringy at times. That pissed me off as a fan. Nothing about that was one of the most brilliant videos ever made. So just as a fan, go fuck yourself.
Right.
So I'm like, you know what? Still, it's my opinion. I want to reach out to Mick. Let's see if I can try to finally get him on the podcast. Look on Twitter. I'm blocked. Mick Wall blocks me on Twitter.
Wow.
I don't think I've ever said anything too controversial or angry. I don't know if I've ever really added him. If I did, it was a very long time. I'm just trying to think what I could have said or done. I did find out after the fact, which is interesting, Doug, that he has blocked followers of mine who have never mentioned him ever.
Wow.
So what is the deal? Is he going through my followers and blocking everybody? Is he blocking anybody that talks about Guns N' Roses? What the fuck is Mick Wall's problem?
It's got to be anybody with a credible source who can out him because, I mean, if you think about it, Axl wrote about Mick Wall and Get in the Ring, and that was written 89, 90. The only access that Mick Wall ever had to Axl Rose was 87, 88 during the UK days. Yet he still talks about it, his relationship with Axl, like they're best buddies.
Oh, yeah.
Well, when Axl's worried about a big show, he doesn't like to perform it. He's told me many a times, the guy is out of his mind. He lives in the same charade that my former partner Niven lives in. You know, and that's one of the things that has never been cleared up is people say, well, Goldstein took over management in 91. Well, that's not true. I actually was made a co-partner, 50% partner in Niven's company in 1988. But again, nobody talks about that. Mick Wall called me when he was writing his Guns N' Roses book and said, I want to put yourself and Peter Grant on the Mount Rushmore of rock and roll managers. Okay. He said, you know, Doug, I mean, everybody thinks that Niven carried the band. You clearly were the one that, and then his book comes out after I gave him 100 hours of interviews, and he killed me. He laid me away. He's a user, an abuser. He's factually incorrect. He has no merit speaking on behalf of anything having to do with Guns N' Roses, yet he was interviewed more than anybody else in that whole thing.
That he was. I noticed that as well.
And the sad part is I told the producer about Mick Wall's lack of involvement.
You did? Okay.
Oh, yeah, sure. When I met with him in LA. The other thing, obviously, Brenda, that I wanted to talk about is the only reason I did that particular Reelz show was to clear up something that you know, Brenda, we've talked about it ad nauseum. I told them factually, July 5th of 1993, when they say in the episode of Reelz that I went to Axl's room to get Slash and Duff to sign away the rights in the name. What I said that they ended up on the editing floor was that Niven came out from under his rock and has convinced a inebriated Slash and Duff that that's what I had done. The reality is July 5th of 1993 is the day my son was born. And so I was in San Juan Capistrano. I wasn't even in the same continent. And so I was really frustrated. I contacted the producer immediately and just said, this is crap. You screwed me. You're like every other journalist who says that they are going to get to the bottom, and then you screwed me, just like everybody else. So I'm not, with the exception of present company, Brandon, I will not be doing interviews anymore without editorial approval. I just won't. Sure. Been screwed too many times.
Sure. What did he? Let's just backtrack a little bit. When you were first approached, because I didn't know you were in this documentary.
Yeah.
You know, not that we share a locket and I need to know every single one of your steps, but you said you were interviewed like a year ago.
Yeah, right.
Mm-hmm. So how did they approach you? How does that work?
It was done out of the UK. The premise that I liked about it was that any money that was made is going towards helping the worldwide effort of the killing of all the bees, right?
Oh.
And so it was kind of I liked the premise. And then when they said it was going to be about Axl Rose, I'm so tired of hearing negativity about a guy that I love, who was my best friend, that I jumped at the opportunity to do that and at least say things that I feel about Axl Rose, that what he meant to me as a best friend and as somebody that I worked with. He's a very misunderstood individual who people think has all these negative aspects to him, and that was never my spin in dealing with the guy. Tortured, yes. Should he have been on the road during Use Your Illusion? Probably not. But still one of my best friends ever.
You know, you said that, and is this private? What, you know, maybe like Axl doesn't want to hear his name in the press at all. That went through my mind, actually. Let's start there. Watching it and watching you was knowing how just my own experience with the podcast and certain stories that get out there. And as you mentioned, I'm not a journalist that screws people over.
Never.
You know, if I put out interviews and somebody's come to me like, hey, can you edit that out? And I've gone back and fixed it. You know, that's why I just don't want that reputation. That's not how I want my career to be built. But watching the documentary and knowing how close you and Axl were, and obviously your feelings are still there. You know, you said at the end, you know, I love your brother, and I can feel that. I felt that. The other thing I felt was when you were talking about his suicide attempt. Yeah. See, I don't know if I forgot that. That shocked me. And I want to read a comment before you know, whatever you want to say about that. I just got this message on Twitter from Celia, I want to say. Hi, I was able to watch the documentary last night through Facebook. I guess a question along the lines of why reveal all kinds of private information about him if they claim to be such a good friend. I know you are probably limited to what you can say, and it's probably heavily edited, but the gun thing, unbelievable. Any wonder the man has trust issues. I thought the documentary was horrible. That's, you know, that's not on you, Doug, or anything. They seem to constantly blame him on everything, which is our problem. You know, Axl is not that guy. Yeah. People seem to do absolutely anything for limelight or money. And Mick Wall, sheesh. So that's where it's not just us. It's the viewers. And she says to me, thanks for the great podcast and Twitter. I've learned more over this pandemic about GNR than I've known my whole life, LOL, and learned new bands too. Take care. Alicia, I think, okay, Alicia. So thanks, Alicia. So while you want to get things out there about what a good guy Axl is, and it's what I do on this podcast, talking about mental health, and sometimes there are traumas that will explain or help understand why there's erratic behavior, you know, lateness or jumping off, whatever. How do you feel? What were the emotions going through and telling that story to a camera? I know there's more to it, and maybe I don't know if you want to say it now or save it for another time, because it is such a...
I'm fine to, you know me, Brando, when have I ever, by the way, when you were talking about somebody, you know, you leave it open if anybody wants to edit. How many calls have you received from me saying, please edit this out?
Oh, none.
Yeah,
none.
zero.
I'm not to say that I've gotten that a lot. I'm just saying.
No, I know, but you know me. I'm an open book. I got no problem talking, particularly the fans, because without fans, you have no band. So as it relates to talking about the suicide attempts, or I wasn't doing that to be anything other than giving an explanation as to his state of mind during a major portion, particularly of the Use Your Illusion. And to give some credence to, you're not alone. There are boatloads and boatloads and boatloads of Guns N' Roses fans who go through the similar depression. And to understand that here's a guy who can go out and entertain in front of 220,000 people and go home and be alone with nobody looking after him or praising his accolades. It's a massive depression that one goes through, and it's not just him. It's entertainers in general. I have this conversation with a lot of people who go from, you know, particularly loved ones. You know, why can't, I mean, when he comes home, there's this massive adjustment. I mean, I've been explaining that for years.
Right.
Playing in front of 22,000 people in an arena, and then, you know, and you do that for a year and a half, and you come home, and your wife says the dog's not going to clean up his own shit, right? I mean, yeah. Yeah. And I fired the maid, right? So it was more speaking. I didn't feel like I was, you know, speaking about anything that Axl hadn't spoken about himself, being depressed and having gone through his own battles and issues. Everybody knows about Sharon Maynard and Susie London, so I didn't feel like I was really speaking out of turn, just more to give a better understanding for some of the pain that he was particularly going through.
Yeah, and you said something to me off the air too, which I want to say, that you are also sharing your experience, because you were, you know, you had to help. So you shouldn't have to hold that in, because that's your experience. That's also, even though you weren't the potential victim, let's say, that's a still traumatic experience for you. You know, so
and it was
understood.
And Brando, it was reliving my own history as well. My brother's birthday is a day before Axl Rose's. He passed 10 years ago, and he tried to commit suicide a number of times. And I was too young to do anything about it. With Axl Rose, I wasn't too young to do anything about it, and I was able to effectively intervene in a positive way. So.
Well said. No, I appreciate that. Tommy, you have any, you know, and you look like you're going to be on the sidelines for the Rams.
He's going to be for the Rams.
They're not playing today in the Super Bowl.
I'm going PGA with Doug. I'm going to hold his golf.
Right, baby. Let's go, man. Let's go,
yes.
Doug. Right.
Yes.
Like what's so I to bring you into this, Tommy, you know, not
Yes.
you're our one man audience. I mean, as a fan, you know, how have you perceived Axl over the years? You know, have you, you know, do you buy into all the rumors that are out there? And it was interesting because as his birthday was yesterday, the amount of positive articles by all sorts of news magazines, it's not usually like that. Like Loudwire's like, here are 6 nice things Axl have done. Spin is like, here, you know, here's like some of his greatest quotes, you know, love him or hate him. It was so positive, but over the years, it's been so negative. Like, are you a fan have you been burned by Axl being late? Like, you know, what's your experience with the band?
I have been burned by him being late. I can understand. I think he was born into an unfortunate situation, and he is a role model where you could take a negative and make it a positive.
Nice. Well done, Tony. Yeah.
Look at that. Short and concise. I love it.
Yes.
So, Brando, let's talk about the positive things on the Reelz thing.
Okay. So,
please.
What was, well, it was awesome to see again Vicky, and she was giving a tour of her apartment and where they slept. I had never seen that before.
Yeah.
Can you tell us?
She's still in the same. She's still in the same apartment.
I don't think so.
Oh.
Maybe they had access to it.
You know, there's a couple people that I'd like to mention that have never been talked about. One of them is Jennifer Perry. Jennifer was best friends and roommates at times with Vicky.
Okay.
She also ended up to work for Avalon, which was the big promoter in LA, Brian Murphy. And Jennifer was an integral part in the band's early success as well. The other 2 people which never get mentioned and were integral in the success of the band was John Jackson, the band's international agent from day one. He's also the agent for Metallica and Iron Maiden. And he was making moves on behalf of the band in a very, like literally from the very beginning. Oh, you've been upgraded.
By the way, look at this. As a gift from Zoom. Running out of time, we've removed the 40-minute time limit on your meeting. Look at that.
Wow, look at that.
Wow. If Zoom wants to be a sponsor of this podcast.
How about that? Well, it's my account. I think that.
Oh, yeah, I know. Just keeping it real.
So John Jackson, who nobody ever talks about, and he was from day one, he was the one that got it, that the band was literally breaking out of the UK. So get him back over there, right? And then all the moves of playing the band around the world was John. And similarly, Mel Posner, who I refer to as Uncle Mel, he was a former president of Capitol Records. He ended up running the international division of Geffen Records. And so between him and John and their support staff, right? I mean, Jane Pampel, who worked for John, and Christina Callio, who worked for Mel Posner. I mean, they were people who were just killing it on the band's behalf. But nobody ever talks about it. You know, people talk like they love to talk about the managers, but they don't talk about the support staff who was really getting a lot of stuff done on our behalf.
Mm. Have you seen, like, what is the best documentary that you've seen or book that's out there that you've seen about the band? Is there?
No.
There still needs to be one put out that will.
Yeah. It's either Axl's book or my book, whichever one, you know, sees the light of day. I mean, because we were the only sober ones, right? Mm-hmm. and we don't, neither Axl nor myself steer too far from reality. Axl's memory is crazy good. My memory is good with some with a little kick in the tail, but I mean, you know, I was there and sober for the entire Appetite and Use Your Illusion tours. So,
who was, and he says he didn't, like, doesn't do many interviews. The guy on the documentary, who big dude, tattooed dude,
yeah, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. John,
yes,
did a great job. You know, he was relaxed and he looked great in front of the camera. John was hired. He'd never been a tour manager before. I brought him in because the guy he's really smart and he's great with people. And so I brought him in to tour manage the biggest band in the world. His first gig was the Rolling Stones shows at the Coliseum. And he was hired pretty much
Here it comes again. Another appearance by my cat.
That's great.
I thought that he did a fantastic job in his interviews. They were interspersed throughout. And I also need to go on record about Tom Zutaut.
Okay.
Tom, I thought, did a fantastic job with speaking about the stuff that he dealt with. His relationship with Axl was at times incredibly close, at times not so close, but that's everybody with Axl. I thought Tom did a great job, and he's looking really good. I mean, I got to give it to him. He looks great. I believed everything that he had to say. Literally, the only thing that I look back on in the Reelz thing is there were a couple of instances where I went, well, hang on a second. All three of us couldn't have been there, right? I mean, I remember being there, and I'm pretty sure I was alone, right? But other than that, I thought that Reese and Zutaut did just a fantastic job.
And it's interesting that Zutaut, he's completely out of the business. I think he sells cars now.
That's right. Yeah, that's what I understand. Yeah.
And
Tom was always really close to Alan, therefore not so close with me. But I believe in giving credit where credit is due, and I thought he did just a really, really, really good job.
Do you know if they reached out to Alan?
I do not know that. I'm not sure.
Okay. And I just want to read this comment from Jay Trucker, because I want to get my listeners involved, sometimes literally, like Thomas. Jay Trucker says, I can't believe they skipped the entire 2002-2014 touring era. Really unfair. I mean, that may be for time, and I think those are for us, the dedicated GNR fans that love that era. But I mean, if you're, just Joey Bag of Donuts, I'm sorry, you don't. I hate to say it. If you're Joey Bag of Donuts, if you're just Joe Schmo, you don't care about Buckethead or Bumblefoot. I mean, we care about them, but for a documentary like that, that didn't surprise me.
Yeah, I mean, again, I don't know how much time you end up having in a situation like that, but I think more importantly, they were trying to deal with the unraveling of the original.
I know, and what I noticed, that when it was the voiceover said, "Here's when the unraveling began," or I'm paraphrasing, but something like that, and the picture they showed was Axl and his braids, and I'm like, I don't know, I just kind of, but. But Doug, were you with him when he went to braids?
Yeah. I was there.
Did you do the braids, Doug?
Yeah, I did the braids. That was my gig, Tommy.
Yeah.
Watching Babysitter's Club braiding Axl's hair.
That's right. Yeah. Exactly. Pull the gun out of his mouth to his braids. Yeah.
Jeez. Do you? I know this is a silly question. Do you remember the conversation? He's like, I feel like braiding my hair today. Did anything like that happen?
Look, when it came to, we never had much of a conversation about what he dressed like, appeared like. It just wasn't really anything that he asked my opinion on.
Well, what about as a friend? I mean, you see him next time, it's like, all of a sudden he looks, like Bo Derek, so you didn't have
I really
okay. All right. Sorry. Yeah, I know it's
hey, Brando, I went from having hair down to here to shaving my head.
Me too.
So, and he never said anything about that.
Fair enough. I guess that's a more sensitive topic.
Stepping out in front of 200,000 people.
Yeah, exactly. That's a more sensitive topic for us who used to have hair.
That's right.
Right.
Oh, there you go. See, I'm like you, but it's quarantine. Who cares? Who cares? You look good, Tommy.
Thank you.
I'm trying to think what else, because it was 2 hours, which I couldn't believe, but it was a nice break from quarantine just to watch something about GNR, which was fun. And Reelz is funny. I've enjoyed their past documentaries. I never take it too seriously, but I think what bothers me, and as we talk about the serious stuff, like with the suicide attempts, and they have a therapist on there that Axl is not their client. Right. I don't know. I know they do that. I know these shows do that about
how do you really know somebody if you haven't delved into his psyche all along? At that point, you're just a tire kicker using your basic psychology 101 to try and analyze somebody you've never met.
I know. And I get it when they do it for like Ted Bundy or these serial killers.
Right. Sure. Yeah, right.
But you don't need to do it for Axl at this point. Because some things I guess felt like, did Axl really believe that Stephanie and Aaron were sisters in a previous life conspiring against him? That just seems like,
I don't think so, yeah.
that sounded absurd to me. And that's just like they were casting something on him. So there's still, as we talk about us, the hardcore GNR fan versus the average, it still bothers me. The average GNR fan or music fan sees that documentary and believes everything. So at least they know they can believe you. They can believe Tom Zutaut. They can certain people, but not Mick Wall. Don't believe Mick Wall.
Oh, please don't believe Mick Wall.
He apologized to Axl in his last book. You take that back? I don't know.
Yeah, right.
Well, if he ever wants to clear his name amongst GNR fans, the invitation is always open.
Nice.
And I feel that invitation will remain open.
Yeah, I made a different invitation when the book came out. He didn't take me up on that one. Oh. Let's go meet in person to discuss how this was done, Mick.
Oh, geez. I'm sure. What else from the doc stood out to you? Do you feel? Is there anything? Because you called me hot. You were coming in hot, Doug. You're like, I got to do an episode this weekend. I got to talk about it.
What? Generally, I thought that it was okay. Other than why get Mick Wall? And we can sit here and talk about it forever, but he was probably 50% of that episode. And when I went out of my way to tell the producer, he's had zero input in anything Guns N' Roses related since 1989, probably. Mick is just a guy who sees an opportunity to continue to milk the teeth, to use your word, to try and feed his family on something he has zero understanding or appreciation of.
So what was the producer's response?
Little.
Did they, virtually shrug their shoulders?
Yeah, he said, "Yeah, no, we've heard that about Mick." Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I think it was the actors for them. He's based in the UK. The producers are based in the UK. And Mick tells a great story, like he actually knows, and he doesn't. So
no, and that's something I have said on this podcast since day one. You can come off as an expert, and maybe like I don't know if I do to some people because I have a podcast. I am not an expert. I wasn't in any of these places. I don't know. I just know from second, third, fifth hand or whatever, and I do my best to research. That's why I got people on like Doug, to tell his side. That's why I invite listeners for questions, because of how intelligent the listener base is. I don't want to mislead anybody. So it's just a shame that could be misled. I guess the last question about the documentary is, any chance that Axl watched it, you think?
Oh, I think there's every chance he watched it. Are you kidding me?
Really? Okay. Wow. Okay.
Actually, it's a great story. Tell me you'll like this one. So in the very beginning, right, I started in 1987. I'm the band's tour manager, and we released Sweet Child of Mine. Finally, right? They released Welcome to the Jungle twice, and it didn't take off. And so finally, they released Sweet Child of Mine, and the band blows up. So I'd always told Axl on the road, never read your press. Don't read it. Don't read it. Don't read it. Don't listen to it. Right? Stay away from it. So he calls me. We're off the road, and he goes, Dougie, he goes, I got to talk to you. I said, what's up? He goes, and some of the fans have probably already heard this because not the first time I mentioned it. So I said, what's up? He goes, man, I'm reading the press. I know you told me not to. I said, what are you doing? He goes, okay. He goes, look, I just need to ask you a question. I said, okay. He goes, every article I'm reading tells me that success has turned me into an asshole. What's your opinion? And I said, really, you want my opinion? He goes, yeah. I said, fine, I'll give you my opinion. I said, in 1987, when I first met you, you tried to fight me in Atlanta, knowing that I've been a bodyguard for the Stones and the Who and Black Sabbath and Heart and Van Halen, blah, blah, blah. You didn't care. You wanted to fight me. I go, you were the biggest asshole I'd ever met in my entire life, but you were underpublicized. I go, now you are successful and you've turned into a really nice guy. The problem is nobody knew back in 87, what an asshole you were. So now we are in late 88 and people think you're an asshole. They have no idea what the hell I was dealing with in 87. So,
that is funny.
Yeah.
What was his response to that? Did he laugh along with that?
Yeah.
Because that's a very honest and nice thing to say.
There was another situation that took place, and it's just kind of an interesting, when he finally realized that, oh shit, maybe we are big. He called me about 3 o'clock in the morning. There's a self-wash on Sunset Boulevard. It used to be there anywhere. I'm not sure if it is. But he was stuck there at 3 o'clock in the morning. There was about 3,000 fans in cars around him, and he couldn't get out. And he called me, he goes, I'm stuck. I go, what's up? He goes, I'm self-washing my BMW, and all these fans started showing up. And I said, call 911. He goes, what? I said, call 911, get him out of there. So, oh, okay. So that does bring up a point. So in the Reelz documentary, there's something else that's misunderstood. So during the Rolling Stones, Axl was running late. I know, tough to believe. Tommy, tough to believe. He was running late. So first show. So I had to send the cops up to Shoreham Towers where he lived at the time and have them pick him up and give him an escort back. Later, it's led to believe by some of the other people doing interviews that only in LA can you send the cops there to jerk him out of his room and take him. That isn't what happened. He knew they were coming. I set it up. I set up a police escort. It wasn't like somebody was, I mean, and they actually showed him in cuffs, right? In the Reelz documentary. I'm like, what are you doing? That isn't what took place at all.
Oh, man.
You know, so I mean, it's there's certain things that got blown out of proportion in it, but like I said, for the most part, I thought that with the exception of Mick Wall, everybody did a really good job.
And the main thing that you wanted to hammer home that bothered you was the contract signing.
I wasn't there. Yeah. Because here's the reality. They didn't have legal representation, and I'm not dumb. I would have said, hey, excuse me, Axl, they don't have their own attorney. This isn't valid. You can't have them sign it in an inebriated state. First off, okay, they're in no position. They're to have legal standing. They don't have legal representation. So that document that they signed should have been set aside as null and void without legal representation in the inebriated state that they were in. Yet nobody ever asked my opinion about that. Slash and Duff never did. They just took it for granted that somehow I was involved, even though I was, 5,000 miles away on the other side of the planet.
And I assume over the years you've tried to let Slash and Duff know, because Slash wasn't very kind to you in his book. I mean,
No, he wasn't very kind. In fact, you got your PGA hat on, Tommy. So Tommy and I discussed this. In Slash's book, he says, Dougie used to put us at these golf resorts so that he could play golf. The reality is I teed off at 5:30 in the morning just as they were going to bed. So it had nothing to do with that. It had everything to do with the fact that on the 88, 89 Appetite Tour, when I was staying downtown, we were throwing drug dealers in and out of hotel rooms right and left. But good luck scoring any heroin on the 15th hole at
that's right.
Yeah, at the TPC course, Las Colinas in Dallas, right? You're not going to do it. Maybe now that it's grown a little, but not back when I was booking them there. That's why I booked them out there. I mean, it had nothing to do with golf. Most of the times I didn't even get to play golf because I was dealing with some mess from the night before.
Yeah, there's still so much that needs to be cleared up. And
look, I mean, would I love the opportunity to sit with Slash and Duff and explain my side of the story? Absolutely. Will I ever get that opportunity? Probably not. Probably not. That's okay.
Well, somebody once said not in this lifetime, and it happened.
So. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right. Very good point.
We'll see.
But again, one of my mantras in life is I don't look in the rearview mirror for fear of running into the wall in front of me. So I don't try to spilt milk. The reason why I do these podcasts really isn't to clear up you know, anything about me. It's really just to talk to the fans, and anybody that knows me well enough understands that about me.
No, I get that sense too. I mean, that's why Tommy's here, you know?
Yep. Thank you. Yeah.
I love the fans. You know, when a lot of these fans were in their teens, they were spending their hard-earned money or their allowance or whatever, buying T-shirts and posters and whatever else that I received the benefit of. And why in the world 20 years later would I not answer questions that had to do with a band that was relevant in their youth? I would think that would be pretty one-sided of me and a pretty shitty thing to do.
There was, and I forget his name. I saw a listener. I think he was from Norway. He commented in the GNF&R fan spot Facebook page. I just want to give them a plug because it's a nice Facebook page. You know,
Martin.
What's that?
Martin Vogelaar?
No, not him. Not him. It's not somebody that I'm like friendly with. Okay. I just saw somebody leave a comment saying, "Has anyone heard from Doug Goldstein lately?"
Oh yeah. Yanni Lindroth.
And he's like, I'm worrying about him. You know, I've been speaking to him for many years. And I know with Facebook, it's, you know, it's not like you have a verified Twitter. You know, you activate your account, you deactivate, you have another, you know, I don't know. It's not like you're trying to escape the cops. It's just Facebook drama, I guess. So I just said, oh, Doug's alive.
Brando, I'll be honest with you. What it is, you know, I've had this discussion privately. I call it cowards behind keyboards. If you Google Doug Goldstein, Guns N' Roses, the very first, the second thing that comes up is why Doug Goldstein's full of shit. And it's an article that you cannot comment on, by the way. He edited it so that you can't put a comment. But it was related to my comments about, I saw the end of the line coming when Axl did his piece about being abused as a child. And then Slash decides to go do a pay-per-view with Michael Jackson. And this guy's saying, but those accusations didn't come out for a couple of years. Well, that's all well and good. But those of us that were in the industry, we all knew. I have a friend that I will leave nameless that I've known since I was 18 years old, who was literally the house manager at Neverland. And we all knew what was transpiring out there. So I don't really give a shit about some coward behind a keyboard saying that I was full of shit, other than when somebody's interested in possibly working with me. And that's the second thing that comes up. And I don't know how to get rid of it. I'm not savvy enough to call Google and say, this guy's full of shit.
I mean, I'm Googling you right now. And honestly, it's a lot of our interviews, but I don't see anything too crazy.
Oh, if you put Doug Goldstein GNR.
Oh, just GNR?
Yeah, Doug Goldstein GNR.
Doug Goldstein GNR. Yeah. Doug Goldstein manager, where music meets soul, design consultant. No, I don't know. Maybe someone did something for you.
Hey,
I don't know. But I mean,
way to go, Tommy.
Yeah, I will.
Tommy, talk to some guys over in Google for me. All right, Tommy.
Hey, even your picture
talked to Mario. Don't worry. Mario said, don't worry about it.
That's right. Yeah.
Your picture with Donald Trump comes up before.
Is that right?
You know what? Have I ever asked you about that, meeting Trump?
Yeah. What was he like?
You know what? I'll be honest with you. The guy, I go on face value. What does somebody treat me like, right?
Right.
And so he came to the show wanting to meet Axl. I made that happen. And then I told my then wife, she was flying in the next day. I said, you're not going to be the host of the show. She goes, who's that? I said, Donald Trump. She goes, fuck you. I go, why would I lie? I go, I mean, I have no reason to lie. She goes, Doug, shut up. Donald Trump was not at the show. I go, whatever. So she flies out the next day, and I'm having dinner with Peter Mensch, who was like my mentor, literally. He helped me all along the way. God bless Peter. Without him, I would have been lost. But he manages Metallica and Chili Peppers and Muse and Black Keys and on and on and on. There's very few bands that he doesn't manage. But so him and his first wife and myself and my then wife, and I, because of the bodyguarding thing, I'm facing the door at this Thai restaurant in Manhattan. And all of a sudden he walks in, Donald Trump walks in, and I hear this, hey, Doug Goldstein. He comes over, pulls up a chair and sits down for 45 minutes, talks to us. And obviously my first wife is just sitting there like, I go, yeah, I'm a liar, right? I'm a big liar. So at the end of it, he literally gave me his business card. He said, you know what, Doug? He goes, I like you a lot. You're a good kid. He goes, if you ever need anything from me, This is my real contact information. Call me anytime. And so I never did, but I used to carry it just as a joke. You know, I've got the Trump card, right? So
that's funny.
Yeah, but he was great. The guy was nice to me. So, you know, I have my opinions about how he served our country, but I'll keep those.
I understand. Right. And I have listeners on both sides of the aisle. So I'm like, we meet here just to talk about, you know, we love Guns N' Roses. Like whatever everybody believes in something different. As long as you don't harm yourself or somebody else, I believe whatever you want to believe. And it is interesting. Didn't it leak last year that it was a document that Trump wrote that November Rain was the greatest music video of all time? It was in some notes to a second. So you know, he got a point for me there. That's right. Well, I mean, this was great. I mean, Doug, we're gonna talk a lot more as this podcast continues about certain things. Tommy, I mean, I hope you enjoyed yourself. I mean,
very much. Thank you very much, Brando and Doug, for the invite.
We're in front of a live studio audience on this pre-recorded podcast.
Just one thing, going back to as far as tardiness and being late. My first show in seeing Axl was at the House of Blues the first time in 2001, and I believe he came on, Doug, at like 3:45 in the morning.
Yeah, like that. Yeah. Give or take.
And what's funny is,
give or take.
So here's the tickets, but this was
in the set list.
This was in front of Tommy Stinson. So somebody wrote, "Remember to smile, Tommy." Now, Doug, whose handwriting is this?
That looks like Axl's. Is that Axl's?
In your opinion, Doug, who do you think this is that wrote it?
Oh, wow. You know what? It's one of the other band members, because a crew member would never put himself in jeopardy, and it's not Axl's writing.
Oh, it's not? Okay. I mean, look at that beautiful set list. Oh my God, Silkworms. My God, Riyadh and the Bedouins. What a show that was, man.
It really was a great show.
You know what, Tommy? I'll put it out there because I've had a few people reach out to me since I've done singular episodes about certain events, like the riots I've done so far. We'll do a 2001 Vegas show, and if you want to be a part of that, we'll get some other.
We flew out from New York. We were lucky to get tickets, and it was a great experience. We could never do it now in our 40s, but back then, standing literally from like 3 o'clock in the afternoon till 3:45 in the morning when he came on, it was really, really, really just a great show. It's a little different seeing Robin dressed the way he was as opposed to Slash. You know, I'm sure Doug understands what I'm saying.
Yeah. And by the way, the first thing that I thought of, Tommy, was that's probably Robin that wrote that.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because Robin had a great sense of humor. Sense of humor. He's a really funny guy. I love Robin Fink a lot.
It was a great show. It was just different seeing the guys, supporting Axl.
Yeah, and I do have to say one thing. I'd like to close with one thing is Richard Fortas. Nobody gives that guy near the credit that he deserves, not only as a player, but as a human being. You know, I lived in St. Louis, and when I go through TSA, they knew that I had worked with GNR, and I'm telling you, Richard Fortas could run for mayor in St. Louis and win, no question. He's just that loved in that town.
He's a great dude. I'm very fortunate to have gotten him on this podcast to talk about freak bass, and I hope whenever a new GNR album comes out that he is a big part of it, because he deserves it. He deserves it.
Yeah, he's just a good guy. Yeah.
Right on. Well, Doug, thank you so much. Tom, let me ask you this before we get out of here, Tommy. Is that your most prized possession, GNR possession? Because I asked this to fans. Favorite piece of memorabilia.
I got a couple. Duff was kind to me and my wife. He had us backstage at the Kings of Chaos in Foxwoods in Connecticut about 7 years ago. I got a ton of video footage, signatures. Slash, I met Slash and Duff a lot, and they were very kind to us back in 2001. So I have a ton of stuff, but it's all Slash and it's all Duff. And if they saw me in a room, they would know who I am, not by name, but they were always very kind to me and very kind to my wife. And Duff didn't have to have us backstage at Foxwoods, and he did.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
Another question I always ask the listeners who come on: do you have a favorite GNR song?
It would definitely have to be "Don't Cry."
I'm assuming the original lyrics.
Yes. actually, the demo.
Oh, the demo. Okay.
Yeah.
I like it. The 1985 demo.
Yeah, absolutely. I bet Doug also heard a lot of Chinese stuff that maybe we didn't hear, even with the leaks and everything else. That's probably very good.
Very much so. Although, you know, Tommy, it was a little bit like, can I please get the baby away from this pregnant woman, because she's been pregnant now for about 7 years.
Right.
I think it's time that we just take this baby away from the mom.
Sure.
But yeah,
Doug,
you're right.
Doug, let me ask you a question. When they got in the studio in 95, 96, the material that Duff and Slash and Matt Sorum worked on, I don't know if Paul Tobias was involved, because that's when Paul Yugi, that's when things kind of really went south. But the material they worked on, was it really Southern blues, or was it okay, or what was your opinion?
It was good. It was good. It just wasn't really. I mean, Axl was trying to go with a 3-guitar motif. And I've said this countless times, so I'm not speaking out of turn. But Axl's response from the second he hired Paul Tobias, Hughie, whatever you want to call him, was, he's only there until you find another guitar player. That's it. He's not the permanent replacement. And I would beat that into Slash and Duff all the time.
Right. And
all they had to do to get rid of him was bring in somebody else, and yet they never did. I could never understand why they opted to not. But, you know.
Mark Ford, former Black Crowes, recently came out that he's been approached a couple times. Do you remember that? Mark Ford coming in?
That probably was being approached by Slash and Duff.
Okay.
The stuff that I was hearing, of course, was from Axl, you know, Zach Wilde, Dave Navarro.
This GNR family tree. But these are other episodes, Doug. You know, if you're obviously I'm here if you want to get more stuff off your chest. You know the deal. And Tommy, this was a pleasure. We'll do a Vegas episode, and we'll be talking to you again.
Actually, can I just ask one question?
Absolutely.
Okay, always wanted to ask this. Thank you, Brandon. Doug, at the music awards, the famous music awards where Slash and Duff got up there, when you were kind enough to say to the people who were running the show, maybe it's a good idea if they don't go up there, but they went up there anyway. What were they drinking?
What weren't they drinking? No.
Okay. Because
So what happened in that situation, and it happened a couple times, I mean, that was, Guns N' Roses was my baby. Great White was his. And so he wrote with them, he produced them. And so because he knew that they were going to be on TV, he ordered me to sit with Great White back in the back so that he could sit up front with Duff and Slash, knowing that they were going to win an award.
Right.
I had no control over what was going on, and I saw them drinking their. I mean, Slash was always a Jack guy, everybody knows that, and Duff was always a Soli guy, and everybody knows that. So that's what they were drinking. After the first time that they won, I approached Dick Clark and I said, "Mr. Clark, I'm not with them. I have no control. They're not going to stop drinking. Nobody that's currently with them can stop them from drinking."
What, did they take it in? Because do they, at those award shows, do they have it available? Because imagine you're sitting, like me and Brandon are sitting down in the audience. How do we continue?
But nobody stops them. So they're sitting there, you know, and they've got it in flasks. But they continue to drink throughout. And Niven they didn't respect Niven enough to where if he said, "Hey guys, that's it, you're done." If I was there, they would have listened to me and just said, "Okay, Dougie, sorry." And I also offered at my expense to send them to a restaurant, Le Chardonnay, that we used to go to. And Dick Clark said, "No, I need them here. I don't care what you say. They have to be here." And I said, just remember what I said. Okay. They're not getting more sober as the evening goes on.
Were you with them when you guys left the American Music Awards? Were you with them in the limo?
No.
I was going to say that must have been an interesting ride.
Yeah. No, I wasn't. I think that the bodyguards are with him. I believe that Niven stayed behind.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, look, Tommy, it's the same thing as the Tom Petty situation. Where Vince Neil out of the dark punches Izzy in front of. I mean, Axl and I were about 50 yards behind. Niven was standing right next to Izzy. Now, had that been me standing next to Izzy, Vince Neil would no longer be breathing air.
Right.
You would have killed him. You would have killed him.
Absolutely. You don't do that to anybody that's a family member of mine.
Oof, yeah. Wow. That story still, like, it's just hard to believe, that story. But one last quick thing, because it's just, how do you not bring up Dick Clark again? And did he have a reaction after the fact? Did he say anything funny? Because it's Dick Clark.
I walked up. He came to walk up to me, and I just went like this, and he goes, you know what, Doug? You warned me. We're good.
You shrugged your shoulders. You're like, yeah, told you, Dick Clark.
Dude, I told you. I tried to tell you. Yeah.
New York, GNR Rockin' Eve. Love it.
That's right. Yeah.
Doug, Thomas, this was so much fun.
Yes, thank you.
And thanks to everybody, who continues to follow along with this this crazy podcast. Continue follow along with the conversation in between episodes on social media, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Twitter, all that fun stuff. And what is to come? Who's to come? I'm hoping we're gonna get a big guest, not GNR, but a big name this coming week. Hopefully, I'll be announcing that soon. But when are you gonna see that episode? When are you gonna see the next edition of this podcast? Well, in the words of Axl Rose once concerning Chinese democracy, I don't know if soon is the word, but you'll see it.